But Cade, there's just a different level of hope with him. And I want to ask you about Cade. I think he has to be an all-star. Like, it's not even a question. Like, 24/7, 10 assists, 45, 38, 80 splits, 38% on pull-up threes, which I know you've been big on. Just talk to me about Cade and your expectations you had for him entering the season to where they are now, because I know mine have changed.
So heading into the season, I obviously had his trainer Ashton on the podcast. I had his brother on the podcast last year. So I've talked with them and kind of went through like before the year, like what do you expect from Cade, or what should fans expect from Cade? What's realistic? What's not? Et cetera, et cetera. So I know Cade and his camp, they put the expectations extremely high for him. They want all the expectations. They want the expectations to be the ceiling, the sky. Like they expect him to be, and he expects himself to be a superstar every single year, to be one of the best players in the NBA every single year. Like that's where their expectations are at. And I I know that Cade and all of them are very happy with how he's been this season, but I know they also think he can be even better than this. And and Cade believes he can be much, much better than this. As far as myself, I think he's about probably met to exceeded my expectations. I mean, he's the I think I may be underrated to a point. Just how much of an impact is adding shooters would, like, and this is coming from someone who was screaming for spacing for the last 3 years for Cade. I I think even as someone who wanted spacing that much, I even undersold it still. Like I didn't expect just by adding Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris, he'd go to become one of the best playmakers in the entire NBA.
I'm
Like
with you, man.
like
Yeah.
I did not expect that. I expected it to help him. I expected Cade to be one day be a top 10 to 15 player. But just adding Tobias and Malik, I didn't even think that would just immediately take him to second in the NBA in assist. And watching him just, I don't know, I guess I didn't expect it to click that fast this year for him. And I feel like what you drafted him to be, which is like his own offensive engine, for him to be his own top 10, top 15 offense instantly, you're seeing that happen. You're seeing him just dissect defenses, whether it's through his scoring or just creating open looks. The amount of points he generates, I talked about this in the podcast a few days ago. I think he's third in the NBA in total points generated when you talk about his own scoring and assist. I mean, he's on a different level right now, and if he's not an all-star, it would be crazy to me. I don't know how, especially with the team, especially with the team success. I don't know how it wouldn't happen. So I think he's been great, man. And the crazy thing is he can be even better. So I think he's definitely been great, and he's worthy of an all-star appearance for sure.
I love that you brought up like him being his own offensive, like kind of hub in the sense of like that Luka Doncic and prime James Harden. I wasn't sure, like, this is where he's exceeded my expectations. Like, is him being that and the team winning? So in their past 15 games with Cade, they're 10-5. And that includes a West Coast trip. I know they've played like the Hornets and some other teams, but Jaden Ivey is obviously now out. We're going to talk a little bit about him after. But like, it's translating to winning with him being this high usage, crazy playmaker. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the most flashy passes, but at the same time, like they kind of are. The way he manipulates the defense, the no look lobs in transition to Asar, like they cannot be underestimated. Like
I absolutely love his manipulation with not just his
crazy.
eyes, not just with his eyes, but where he releases passes from. I like if you watch where, and this is like a very tiny detail that nerds like me like notice and like, but like where he releases passes, he'll lift the pass here to throw it low. He'll take an extra dribble low to throw it high to the opposite way. Like he uses his, not just his eyes, but where he's releasing the pass from. Like for example, he'll pick up his dribble, pull his hands up, and then throw a hard bounce pass down to get the like he's learning how to manipulate defenses in so many different ways. It's been so entertaining to watch.
It's crazy, man. Like, and that's where he's exceeded my expectations because, like, I honestly like, and I'm so happy I'm pretty much completely wrong on this. I just wasn't sure he could be that guy. Like, I just wasn't sure if he had like, I don't even know what it was. I just I think it was just a product of how much losing this team had done. And like you mentioned, we all know they needed spacing, but I don't think we realized how much that would benefit Cade. Like, and it's kind of almost makes you a little bit angry about prior seasons. But regardless, like he is like I wasn't sure he could be a top 15 player in the NBA, but now I'm like, well, why not? Like, literally, why not? And that takes me to my next question. Like, his season's been awesome, but where would you say his next area of improvement can come to take him to that kind of all NBA, top 15, top 10 type of player?
So at media day, I talked to him a little bit about his floater and how, because I knew talking with Ashton over the summer that he had been working on his floater all off season. So I kind of asked him about it. I wanted him to talk about it a little bit. And he spoke about how adding a floater was going to help his finishing numbers and how make his finishing a little bit easier to where he's not having so many tough finishes and kind of, he can turn some of those really hard finishes into floaters instead. And hopefully that would help with his efficiency. By far, the thing that he has to improve on is his finishing around the rim.
Yeah.
That is the thing stopping him from being a superstar. It's by far. It's the one area of his game that he's not there yet. And I mean, I've said this to Ashton many times, and I'm going to be very vocal about it until it happens. He needs to use his floater so much more. It needs to be a part of his game, like 3 to 4 shots a game, where he's turning looks at the rim into floaters. So far this year, he's in the 90th percentile on floaters. He's one of the best in the league. His touch on floaters and hook shots from that 5 to 8 feet area, his touch is tremendous. You see it on post ups, on turn away hook shots. He has great touch in that area. And a lot of his finishes around the rim, he does blow some bunnies every here and there, and that's something I do think he can improve on. Just whether it's turning some of those bunnies into dunks or just focusing more. I'm not concerned about that. The more of my concern with his finishes is that he seems to struggle at finishing through help side defense. A lot of times he'll get to the basket and the center will rotate over, and he struggles at either one, obviously foul calls, and I think that's some of it's out of his control when it comes to foul calls. I don't want to sit here and say he needs to do a better job at drawing free throws because I feel like a lot of times he's just being flat fouled and they're just not calling it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I feel like he does struggle at times against a rotating defender from the weak side and finishing through that contact. So I feel like if he just resorted more to stopping before he got all the way there and just using his floater, it really would make his efficiency go much higher and increase some of his finishing numbers. But nonetheless, by far, the biggest thing he has to improve on is finishing nonetheless. He has to become a better finisher at the rim, whether that's turning those looks into free throws or becoming better at finishing through contact. If he doesn't improve that, that will cap him as a sometimes all-star. But like he'll be capped at that if he can't improve his finishing. But I think he's going to. He'll be like a second guy if he can't improve his finishing. But like he improves his finishing and takes that to another level, or just starts using his floater more often. Like I don't know where his ceiling exactly is at, but that's the area for me.
I agree. I think so for sure. And I like that you brought up the post hooks because I think he's gotten to that a lot more this season. Just posting up in general has been much more of a feature of his game. Like I've even been surprised, like some of the offhand, like lefty hooks. I'm like, I just feel like they're going in every time, and that's something I don't think we saw a lot prior. But yeah, even if he's like the finishing, I think you just raise a good point. Like it's about the way he finishes in the paint. Like it don't have to all be like layups and all these creative finishes like that. So use that floater. And I feel like we've seen him get to the floater a bit more, but like you said, could definitely get those attempts up. But like, yeah, man, if he can improve that, it's it's very exciting. I'll just say that. Just to round it out on Cade, defensively, what have you seen from him this season? Because I think he's this is the best defensive season I want to say, at least since his rookie season. But I think this is better. Thoughts on that end of the court?
I think you're seeing where he's best at. He's not someone you want to be putting him at the point of attack, guarding small guards. You don't want him guarding quick guards. You don't want him guarding like guys like that. But if you have him guarding threes, guys his size are a little bigger, having him as a weak side rim protector at times. Like I think he's really impactful at that. When you have him kind of in the gaps, trying to force steals, using his length and stuff, he's really good when you use him like that. He can get into foul trouble, and when he gets into foul trouble, I think he needs to he needs to avoid foul trouble, but two, he needs to learn how to, and this is really hard to do, but remain an impactful defender while being in foul trouble. Because usually, as soon as he gets 2 fouls in the first quarter, you can go ahead and just chuck up him playing defense the rest of the half because he doesn't want to pick up another one.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he has to carry so much offensively, and he knows that if he goes out, the team's screwed. So he just doesn't try. He stops trying on that end. But anytime he gets into foul trouble, he just stops playing defense. And I understand it, but you can't, like, you have to find a way to remain impactful. But I think the main thing JB's done is just figure out where he's best used at, is guarding threes and using his weak side rim protection, using his passing lane defense, like stuff like that. I feel like in previous years, too often he was guarding like ball handlers and stuff and navigating screens. I don't think he's that great at that. I think he's much better in where they're trying to utilize him now, and that's perfectly fine. You should be playing him as a three defensively. That's what his size looks like, and you should be acquiring guys that can get and play the point of attack like an Asar Thompson. So I think that's the big thing for Cade.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below.